Hello, I'm Patrick Manzi, Chief Economist with NADA, here to give you a first quarter of 2021 economic update. I'd like to start with the progress we've made as a country with vaccinations. As of April 5th, more than 106 million Americans have received at least one dose of the vaccine. And that's nearly 40% of the eligible population and roughly 32% of the total population. Going forward, mass vaccination is going to be key to helping our economy grow and recover from the COVID crisis. So, speaking of GDP growth, looking forward, we're coming off the worst real GDP contraction since World War II of around 3.5%. However, it's important to note that that contraction could have been a lot worse, and looking back where we were seeing the rest of the year from a year ago, we indeed, in fact, thought it was going to be a lot worse than it ended up being. But looking forward to this year, we're expecting very strong growth. The first quarter, real GDP growth is expected to be around 6%. And then for the year as a whole, we're expecting growth of around 6%. And then in 2022, we expect growth to fall just a little bit, but still be high by historical standards of around 5.2%. Because of large governmental transfers from several stimulus bills recently, consumers enter 2021 with about $1.6 trillion of excess savings. Big thing is, of course, going to be getting people back to work and getting back out there living their normal lives. Moving to Federal Reserve policy and interest rates, we don't expect to see any moves on interest rates this year or the next year. The Federal Reserve has indicated that they're going to keep interest rates at that lower bound of 0 to 0.25 percentage point through 2022, and we don't expect any moves until 2023. Turning to the labor market, we still have a long way to go with getting people back to work. March's jobs report showed job gains of about 916,000 jobs. This, of course, is a very strong report, but we're going to need at least a year's worth of jobs reports that look like this to get us back to where we were pre-COVID. Turning briefly to franchise dealership employment, at the end of the year, employment sat around 1,077,000 jobs. This is about 5 or 6% below where franchise dealership employment was pre-COVID. Now, we've also seen very high consumer confidence levels. Recently in March, it reached the highest level since right before COVID last year. So again, consumers are seeing this positive vaccination news, these strong job gains reports, and are optimistic about the state of the economy going forward. So now let's turn to light vehicle sales. The first quarter of 2021 came to a close with light vehicle sales that reached a 16.8 million seasonally adjusted annual rate. Now that's up significantly from 2020's first quarter SAAR of 14.8 million units. Of course, that's not really a very fair comparison because the first quarter of 2020 is when we saw the first impacts from COVID-19. But when you compare it to the first quarter of 2019's 16.9 million unit SAAR, you can see that we're pretty much back to normal there with respect to retail sales. It seems that retail sales have fully recovered while fleet sales remain depressed. And the main reason that fleet sales are depressed still is because of those production shortages. And manufacturers have prioritized sales to retail customers over fleet customers, as retail sales tend to be more profitable for those manufacturers. Now, March specifically SAAR came in at around 17.75 million units. That was the second highest SAAR for March on record. So really just a stupendous month for March. And also, when we take a look at sales through the first quarter, we've seen that 3 out of every 4 new vehicles sold is a light truck. Pickups continue to gain share, and crossovers continue to gain share as well. I do expect we're going to continue to march towards 80% market share for light trucks. And the U.S. really has just become a majority light truck market. Now, because of all this demand out there for new vehicles, manufacturers have had to rely less on incentives, and indeed incentive spending has fallen year over year for the past several months. We do expect that this incentive spend is going to continue to be low until production can catch back up. Now, I mentioned that there have been several production disruptions due to supply chain difficulties. New vehicles have been hit hard in the first quarter by these production disruptions, mainly from a shortage of semiconductor microchips. There has also been a shortage of resins that are used in auto parts manufacturing. And then in February, we saw plant shutdowns because of severe winter weather in the middle part of the country. Now, add that all up, we lost at least roughly 300,000 or so units of North American production. Globally, we lost probably over 1 million units of production. We've seen used vehicle values continue to rise here as we've started 2021. Now, the end of 2020, we saw a cooling of these used vehicle price increases, but we've really just started off with used vehicle values continuing to rise. I expect as we enter these key selling months in the spring and the summer that we're only going to see used vehicle values rise, again on the backs of this hot new vehicle market that is supply constrained. That's going to put a lot of pressure on used vehicle prices as customers shop the used vehicle market if they can't find what they want on the new side. We are very, very optimistic about the continued recovery of the vehicle market. Hopefully, as these production disruptions get dealt with, we can meet the demands of these fleet customers out there. Nevertheless, we have decided to raise our forecast for 2021 new light vehicle sales to 16.3 million units. This is up from our initial forecast at the start of the year of 15.5 million units. We are poised for a very strong recovery, very solid economic growth in 2021, and I hope we can continue our rapid pace with vaccine distribution and getting Americans back to their normal lives. I hope you all out there continue to be safe and well, and I hope you can get a vaccine appointment sooner rather than later so you can get back out there into the world.